On behalf of everyone at WNET, congratulations to Steve Adubato and the Caucus Educational Corporation on 25 great years of broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Tom Marino. At Cohn-Resnick, we believe that all citizens need to be informed about the issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support the programming produced by Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Barnabas Health, Berkeley College, the law firm of Gibbons PC, United Water, making the planet sustainable is the best job on Earth, Wells Fargo, Verizon Communications, and by New Jersey Natural Gas, proud to support education in our communities. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger, powering NJ.com, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and its monthly magazine, New Jersey Business.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to the Tisch WNET studios here in the heart of New York City, Lincoln Center. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Neal Shapiro, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer here at WNET, our parent company, if you will. How you doing, Neal?
Good to be back.
Good to be in your place here. A lot of things going on at WNET and in the larger public broadcasting world. Let's talk about some of the biggest things happening at WNET. One of the first things you were saying is that more local programming than ever before and more programming around ethnic areas.
Yeah,
Talk about it.
Yeah, well, you know, for years, WNET has been known for national programming, and we still are. And we're very proud of the national programs we do, like Great Performances and American Masters in Nature. They're great shows. But we don't want to overlook the fact that we're in the biggest market, I think the most important place in the country, and a place that is so interesting in so many ways. And so we tried to dive into that in a deep way. And one is to talk about the fact that there are so many different cultures here. I mean, no other place has, I think in Queens, there are 150 languages just in Queens. Right? So we tried to look at the different ways that make the city so vibrant. And one is by ethnicity. We did a thing about working with the mayor's office about people's ethnicity and had people come on and do brief one-minute things about their ethnicity, how they got here, what made it great. Then as PBS has done big national programs, we said, what could we do locally? So PBS did a big series about Latinos around the country. We did Latinos of New York and New Jersey. And it was great. We were really pleased with the kind of results we got.
And my good colleague on Capitol Report, Rafael Piorman, a very big part of that as well. Okay. By the way, I noticed the promo you did together, he spoke Spanish.
Right.
And you're working on your Spanish?
I am. I say I get to write a lot of the promos. I wrote that, and that was the most fun because we cracked up the most times doing it. So.
Yeah, I imagine. I imagine. But the other thing that's very interesting, Neal, is that, and you and I talk about this a lot, is the constant challenge that, again, I don't want to bring up the money part, but the idea is there are always more ideas for programming serving the community in a meaningful, substantive way than there are resources to do that. Talk about the balancing act, and if it's changed since the last time we talked about a year and a half ago.
Well, you're right. It is always a problem we have. I think part of the reason I'm excited about doing the local programs, it does two things. One, it reminds people that we are more than just the national producer. We do want to reflect the community, and I hope when people see that, they'll respond to that and say, gee, we'd like to see more of that. So, for instance, we did Latinos of New York and New Jersey. The next story is there's a big series about Italian Americans, so we're doing Italian.
Hold on, you have my interest.
So there you go.
Talk about that.
I will. So it's Italian Americans of New York and New Jersey, and the idea is we're going to do much the same way we did it with Latino Americans, which is to say we're not going to do it the way traditional documentaries do. The way that works is you get a great producer, and they sit in a room, they think of ideas, they get the 4 or 5 people they want to profile, they go out and do it, and you get a well-shaped, done documentary. We want to make this kind of more interactive, so we're going to start saying to people, send us your stories. Tell us what makes being Italian-American in this area so exciting for you. Tell us what makes this a great place to live. Tell us about your personal family stories. We'll ask people to send in ideas, to send in pictures, to send in video, and we'll put some of that together. So a lot of this will be what they call user-generated content. And what I like about it is sometimes it isn't always the most beautifully shot. These aren't professional camera people. But sometimes what you get is so real, you know, in a way that you're not going to get it in the studio. And the pictures you get are so fantastic. And the stories you get. When we say to people, tell us the stories online, You know, we haven't started this yet. You'll see a promo soon for it, and we'll put a web address. And I promise you, just like we did with Latino Americans, when you read it, some of these stories will bring tears to your eyes. The pride people feel in this country and in the city, the excitement they feel about what makes the tri-state area so great, and how they feel a part of it. And the stories, so many of our ancestors who came here with nothing and worked their way up to successful careers. There is no other country that has stories like this, and I think no other region that has stories like this in the way that we do.
In many ways, now you're talking about changing the relationship between a television station network, and again, it's not just WNET, because on the New Jersey side, NJTV would not exist if it were not for WNET. But it's changing the relationship between a broadcast entity, online entity, and its audience. It's much more interactive as opposed to we'll provide the programming for you and just sit there and watch it.
Exactly, and I think for a couple reasons. One is the world of technology is changing. You know, we no longer live in a world where you and I, when we were kids, when there was one TV in the house and you waited to see what came on. If you missed it, you never saw it again.
More passive.
Exactly. Now you can see it when it's on, or you can watch it later. You can watch it online, and you can ask questions, and we can extend the experience. So often after our programs, there'll be things on the web that we couldn't fit in, or more material, or other places to send you. So people can get excited by what they've seen here, and we can give them the tools to go on and do more. I think it reflects the fact that TV is no longer just a place, and especially public television, a place where you just have a passive 30 or 60-minute experience and then it's over. We are really about being a member of the community, and I think the kind of work that you do and the kind of work that we do on the local level really exemplifies that, because when you look at the other places in TV that might do that, they just don't. You know, the fact is commercial television is commercial television, and there really is not enough market incentive for them to go out and interview community leaders to talk about the kind of topics that you do every day and that we do, which aren't necessarily picture-rich topics. So things like the economy and healthcare.
Let's talk education. Let's talk, because there was a Saturday just a few months back, and this is part of a much larger initiative that Neal's going to talk about, the American Graduate Day. Listen, you will not, no disrespect to our colleagues in commercial television, but you are not going to find a whole lot of programming about high school dropouts or the problem of high school dropouts. An entire day.
Right.
Dedicated to this topic, not just coming from WNET, but across the country, but WNET leading the effort. Right. Describe that day, American Graduate Day, how it's tied to a larger initiative. Because, again, that's a good example.
And you're right. So it started on, the day referred to 7 hours of coverage, which nobody in commercial television would do. 23 minutes that were sort of the national story, and then 7 minutes where stations could break away and do their own stories. So around the country, stations would interview their own educational leaders. And stations would also provide material, which made the national feed. But the idea was to highlight all the great nonprofits in the country that do work, and say to people, this time when we put the 800 number up there, this one time, we're not saying call and support us, we're saying get involved. If you want to support any of these organizations in any way, financially, volunteering, if you want to be on the board, if you want to find out more, because a lot of people do great work to help dropouts, and it's a huge crisis. And I think we forget that if you're not reading by grade level 3 or 4, if you don't graduate from high school, your chance of making it in this complicated world are pretty negligible.
But why do that? I mean, you and I had a conversation, you may not remember this, we were at a Yankee game a while back, something other than public broadcasting, a passion we share as the Yankees. We were talking about the Harlem RBI organization, right? Which you know very well. Dedicated, and Mark Teixeira very involved. But other than baseball, he's very committed to kids after school mentoring, right? That's just one example of so many organizations. Why would a broadcast organization be so committed to after-school programs, mentoring, so that kids don't drop out? Like, why is that, devil's advocate, why is that the job of a broadcast entity?
Because here's what public television can do that nobody else can do or will do. We can extend the experience of what other great experiences are. Sometimes it's arts and culture. Sometimes it's people doing good work. So Harlem RBI is a great example. Mark Teixeira and his crew do a great job of saying to kids, you know what, first, baseball's important, it's your love, and we can use that to make you better citizens and better students. And that's what happened. So all those kids who are in Harlem RBI, they play baseball or softball after school, after they get tutored. All those kids graduate high school. Almost all of them go on to college. All have had successful careers. Now, as good as that program is, it is bound by, in the case of Harlem, by the schoolyard they have and the building they have, and by other organizations around the country. We as TV, as broadcasters, can blow the walls off that and say, you can see it around the country. If there's an RBI group in your neighborhood, you can do it. If there isn't, you can start it. Otherwise, you know, these people do great work, and they're like trees falling in the forest. Nobody hears it. What we can do is literally blow out their message, expose it to everybody. And nobody else is going to do that but public television.
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
And I know you're also pretty hands-on, because when you watch that day, Neal's in the control room. very hands-on
Yeah.
in a good way. Let's cross the river.
Yeah.
By the way, for those of you who watch One-on-One on a regular basis on every night in WNET and NJTV, you notice a lot of our programming from New Jersey, but a lot of it from right here at the Tisch WNET studio as well. Get a lot of folks from Broadway, the entertainment, arts world, which is wonderful. But on the Jersey side, I mentioned NJTV before. Over 2 years, that experiment, fair way to describe it, Neal, we're into the 3rd year. You made a decision together with your colleagues here, the board here at WNET, to jump in. Describe where you think we are in this 3rd year, what we need to be doing, and how that experiment's going.
Well, first, I couldn't be more proud of everybody who works on NJTV and the great job they've done. As you remember, we started from ground zero. We had nothing, and we had some growing pains. I look at where we are now and say we're providing more and better coverage than the state's ever had before. All of it in high def, all of it smart. A lot of it we do with partners. But we committed to having about 24 hours of local broadcasting. We now also have 30. We are reaching into news in a deeper and smarter way. We can talk about some of the specials we've done that I think are...
Look at the 2013 gubernatorial race. Look at the election debate between Governor Christie and Senator Bono, the most watched one, the most talked about one. Look at election night coverage, wall-to-wall, NJTV.
I couldn't be... And in fact, one of the people on the panel wrote me a note and said, I've been doing elections in New Jersey I've done 22 of them. This is the best one I've ever done. And not only was I proud of the team, but as I flicked around and said,
it might have been Roger Bodman. Because he's done all of them.
That's right,
why is that important?
That's important because, I think I want people to judge us based on a track record of what preceded us. Right? And it's people, I think, when we first jumped in and said, well, those guys across the river aren't really committed. I want to show them, when we put our minds to something, we're serious about it. And I thought it was wrong that New Jersey be the only state that didn't have its own public television system. And wrong that a state that is dwarfed sometimes by New York and Philadelphia, covering the cities that they do, that New Jersey didn't get the attention. And things like election night and State of the States are reminders that the state has concerns from north to south, and somebody ought to be covering it. And I'm incredibly proud of the team that's done it. I'm also, I must say, grateful more and more corporate supporters have come on board. We could use more, but we're delighted we're getting more and more members to join us. That's important because at the end of the day, this is public television. This really belongs to the people of New Jersey.
Neal, thank you. We're excited to be partners once again, to be here in this fabulous studio and to do important programming that serves the tri-state region. Thank you, Neal.
Great working with you.
You got it. Folks, we're here at the Tisch WNET studios here in Lincoln Center. Good people, terrific people, talking about important programming that matters to you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
There he is, back by popular demand. Ernie Anastos, Emmy Award-Winning Anchor, Fox 5 News here in New York. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Steve. This is like old home week for us.
It sure is.
We love being together. We have you on our newscast talking about political issues and other things, and now here we are doing a little reverse.
Now I have you in the hot seat, right? By the way, people can watch every night, 5 o'clock?
Yes, 5 o'clock on Fox 5. Love it. I enjoy it. It's just, so important on a day-to-day basis to be able to communicate with an audience. And I've been doing it a long time, 35 years in New York.
No, it's not.
And 35 years. And it's like sometimes I can't believe that much time has gone by. I started in 1978, right across the street at Channel 7.
Right over, literally. Exactly. By the way, folks, we're at 66 in Broadway here in the heart of New York City, Lincoln Center. And Ernie's right across the street, ABC.
ABC, Channel 7. That was in 1978, and I really enjoyed that time, and I enjoy being here and looking over there and having fond memories.
Isn't it interesting? By the way, Ernie's on every night with Dari Alexander. Chemistry. Talk about that, because you've been on lots of different teams.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I was with ABC. And then, they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse, as they say, at CBS, and went there for several years and had a wonderful time. I worked with Dana Tyler and worked with Michelle Marsh, Carol Martin, at Channel 7, of course, the infamous, the great, the lovely lady, Roseanne Scamadella.
Wow.
And so she was terrific, and Kaiti Tong as well. And then from CBS, there was a nice overture to come over to Fox, and I joined Fox and have been working with Roseanne Escato.
The best in the morning over at Good Day New York.
Wonderful lady.
Over with Greg Kelly in the morning.
Yep, with Greg Kelly and Dari Alexander at 5 o'clock. So I'm enjoying it, and I like the schedule. After doing the news for many years, 11 o'clock and 10 o'clock for 35 years, it's nice to have that evening break, and I love doing the 5 o'clock and having the opportunity to do other things as well. Some of the positive series I like to do.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
By the way, we should let folks know that it's about 6:30, 6:45 in the evening. Ernie just got off the news, 5 to 6 o'clock, shot over here to Lincoln Center to do this, so we really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Biggest change, before we talk about positively, Ernie,
Sure.
biggest changes in local news. You've been part of it for a long time. You've seen a lot of changes. Other than the digital revolution and the fact that people can walk around and get news and information, you know, on all sorts of devices. Biggest changes.
Access, tremendous access. When I was across the street, when we talked about Channel 7, we pretty much had just a few channels on the air, and we didn't have the internet. We certainly didn't have cable. We didn't have the competition. So we also didn't have access to a lot of the stories that were available to us on an international level from satellite services and other feeds. So when we were doing local news, let's say in the 70s and 80s, mostly in the 70s, you didn't have the opportunity to really reach out and go live from any part of the world like we can today. You didn't have the opportunity to hear from reporters and comments from people from different sources. The content now has changed tremendously. When we go on the air, it really no longer is a local newscast. It really is a world newscast because our content goes from the local stories to a national, to an international story. That has changed dramatically, and that means that you have to have, this is an interesting line. One time someone said, if you really want to be a good anchor, you should be a mile wide and an inch deep.
In terms of information?
You need to have that sort of information available to you. So when you go on the air, you can really talk about anything. We can go on the air and be told that there's a major story somewhere in the world. We have to say something.
And you know what's so interesting about that, Ernie? We're doing this in late 2013. Ernie and I were together on election night, pretty significant election night, 2013, the governor's race in New Jersey, New York City, mayor's race. And Ernie, I'm there on Ernie's left, and Dari's on the right, and literally, Ernie's got his... He's got his notes there, but his iPad's right there, and you're working it because...
Yeah, it's a combination of having the iPad there and also our regular computer, because I can access information anytime I need it. If you're talking about someone, I can look up whether it's a bio or an update on particular details that I'm looking for, and it's available to me. And it takes a second. I also have access to whether it's other channels and other sources, or Associated Press or Bloomberg News, whatever it happens to be, it's at my fingertips.
Has it changed? It's interesting. In many ways, it's changed the role of an anchor. People think, oh, you're a news reader. That's just not true.
No, at one time, it was sort of like that because you did read the news. Now you're more than that. Now you have to actually report on the air because we have breaking stories every day. If we have, let's say, a major fire or something along those lines, we're on the air, we're doing interviews with people who are coming to us either from a remote location or a telephone, a beeper as we call it. So you have to be developing that story on the air as a reporter. This is how we all started. We all started as reporters. So now we're back doing it, but we're doing it in front of the camera in the studio.
Real quick on Positively, Ernie.
Yeah.
What is it and why is it so important?
I love this. This is my mission. I am looking to just get more positive stories on the news. I think we need the balance. We reward a lot of bad behavior. We all know that. Exactly. And this Positively, Ernie, is something that I've really branded. I'm doing it on Channel 5 at 5 o'clock. We have interesting features. We also have a minute of positive news on WOR Radio. I write for Resident Magazine. And I'm trying to bring in some balance to our coverage so that people will know that there are good things happening in the world in different areas, whether it's health and education, technology, social change, so that people can say, wow, I didn't know that, and I'm glad that I do know that.
How do you find the stories?
It's not that difficult because we have access. I can go online and start looking up a subject that I like. For example, I did a story on what would you tell a newborn baby? If you had a chance to talk to a newborn baby, right, and let them know something that they could remember. I go online and I look up information for newborn babies. I must have 1,000 articles that come through, and I get some ideas. I start to cull from that information, and then I go out on the street and talk to people.
But Ernie, you sound like you're producing yourself.
Yeah, I do. I like it.
Like you're literally producing your own segment, writing your segment, putting it together.
Yes. We're going, you know what? As they say, everything old is new again. this is how we started. When we were in the field as reporters doing all of that ourselves, then we elevated to different stations and different markets where you had producers and writers. Now we're back to doing it all by ourselves again.
Because a lot of people come to you for advice. I know I have over the years many times. But when you go and you talk to folks, younger folks in college and other places, and say, Ernie, I want to do what you do, and they have no idea what that really means, but they want to be in TV news. To what extent do you try to explain to them, first of all, how incredibly challenging, difficult, competitive it is, but also how much hard work there is, and they're not sitting on an anchor desk reading what someone else wrote? How much do you get into that, and do they really want to, loaded question, I know, how much do they really want to hear that?
Well, you know what, the first thing I tell them is the only place you'll find success before work is in the dictionary. And you have to make sure you go out there and create what you need to do. Be a self-starter, create ideas, just like we're talking about. And I want them to know that it's very challenging because it's far more competitive than when you and I started.
Right.
So they have to understand that there will always be someone out there competing against them. Not to worry about that, have confidence in yourself. But I want them to have a good education. They have to be able to think. They have to be able to go out on any kind of a general assignment and be able to bring information together, condense it. That's not an easy thing to do, taking a difficult subject sometimes and reducing it to 30 seconds. And so I want them to be educated, I want them to be aware, to communicate with one another, but I also impress one other big thing, values. I talk about values. Do not give up. I have seen so many people destroy themselves because they thought that they were famous. They were making a lot of money.
Some of them were your colleagues.
Yes, they were personalities on the air, and they wanted to just, feel all of this. And in the end, it's a hollow victory. So values are important. To understand who you are, where you came from. Don't ever forget that. Where you're going and why you're here. I tell them one thing that's very important. Instead of striving for success, strive for significance.
Big
Who are you?
difference. Describe that.
Well, it's who you are. Saying, okay, I have been given a talent. I've been given a gift to go out there and do this. I want to do it well. But I want to know that after I have reported, after I've covered these stories, and even after I've given it up, and it's time to hang up,
Which will happen for all of us.
Yeah, it happens. You have to say to yourself, what have I done with my life? What good have I done? Have I made a difference? True success comes from having the ability to help others. That's real success. So if you can go out and say, I made a difference. I had quality reporting on the air, positive news, or whatever it happens to be.
Or your book. Talk about your book.
Or a book.
This is why you wrote that book.
Yeah, I wrote a book for children called Ernie and the Big News.
Ernie and the Big News.
Yeah, and it's a positive story about a young reporter who comes into the big city and covers the stories, but they all have happy endings. And we give
You give that book away to a lot of kids.
A lot of kids. I speak to so many schools in the New York City area. We go to 400 or 500 kids, as we saw in that picture, at a time, and we'll give them a free copy. St. Francis Food Pantries and Shelters of New York are terrific. We did a big thing at Columbia University. The school's chancellor, David Walcott, was there. We ended up having 1,000 kids that joined us. We invited 1,000 children from middle schools, and they came in, and we had a 2-hour live program talking about bullying, talking about careers, talking about values, talking about health. Dr. Oz, Wendy Williams, different speakers who are professionals who are able to help us out, psychologists. It was terrific. Now, that was a real give back. So working with young people, to me, is very, very important because they are the next generation.
Ernie, one of the things that's always struck me about you, both working with you but also just watching you over the years, is the whole positive thing,
Yeah.
And there are people who said to me, you know, Ernie, that can't be totally real. And I'll say, yeah, it is. And so my question is, given the fact that you report on so much negativity, so much crime, corruption, horrible mayhem going on in the world, where does that positivity come from? It's got to be a decision that you've made and keep making over and over and over again, and I don't really know where it comes from.
Well, it was a wonderful gift from my home, from my parents and from my grandparents.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, Nashua. And growing up as a young boy, my grandfather was a Greek Orthodox priest. He was one of the first 100 ordained in the United States, a real pioneer. And he left me so many wonderful things, but my dad was the same way, my mother, my sisters. We had a very loving family, and I was always taught to feel good about myself. Self-esteem is one of the greatest gifts we can give a child. Make them feel good about who they are. Doesn't matter about the success. just feeling good about who they are. And I was just really blessed to have that. So as a result, I remember my grandfather talking to me and saying that even on a cloudy day,
even when you lose an anchor job, even when you get retired,
exactly,
it happens.
It happens. But even on a very cloudy day, a stormy day, if you're in an airplane and you go up through those clouds and you come up above, it's a blue sky and the sun is shining. And so therefore, no matter what you're facing, no matter what you're doing, always remember that there is a wonderful place for us in life. If we keep doing what we're doing and we're true to ourselves, there's a gift, there's a reward. And I don't like to get into one of these spiritual things because that's not the way it is, but I do have faith, and that to me is important. I think there's one God, and I believe in that, and I feel that that has been what has given me the gift to be able to smile, feel good, and feel positive that no matter how bad things are, we can make it better.
Saying it is one thing, but living it every day is another,
Yeah.
and that's what you're doing. So I want to thank you on behalf of everyone in public television,
Thank you,
and more
Steve.
importantly,
Yeah.
in the broadcasting world, for doing what you've been doing for 35 years, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Come back anytime in public
Good
television.
man.
Thank you, Ernie.
very much. Congratulations to you, Steve. We're very proud of you.
This was fun.
Thank you.
This was great.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System. Funding has been provided by Barnabas Health, Berkeley College, the law firm of Gibbons PC, United Water, Wells Fargo, Verizon Communications, and by New Jersey Natural Gas. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been made possible in part by the Adler Aphasia Center.
Hi, I'm Governor Tom Kean. A dear friend of mine had aphasia, which is a language disorder that occurs from a brain injury or a stroke. It robs a person's ability to communicate, but it doesn't affect their intellect. Programs and services offered at the Adler Aphasia Center help to improve my friend's communication skills, as well as her self-confidence and quality of life. Most importantly, she was among people who understood her. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with aphasia, there is hope.